Also, what I'll mention is just for all of you people that are my age, or even the ones that are younger, there was a form that I filled out, and I still have the form to this day in that CD. And I was looking at it the other day in this compilation from Fueled by Ramen, and they had a survey like, how did you hear about us? What magazines do you read? What blah blah blah, all these questions, and you're supposed to like mail it back to them, so they have these stats or whatever, and then they probably send you stickers or whatever. One of the questions on there was, how much time do you spend on the internet per week?
You've got mail.
I put none. Wow, things have changed, Dan. Do you remember a time when you didn't at all go on the internet?
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, I'm about what? You're 32, right?
31, yeah.
31, almost 32. So there's 6 years between you and me. So I was younger, but yeah, I remember.
But it's a long time ago, right? You were young.
It was probably honestly 2002, 2003 that we had dial-up.
Yeah.
We got dial-up in 2001, and I didn't really do anything with it until 2002.
Wow.
I think.
Anyway.
It was something like that.
All I'm saying is I'm on the internet every day now.
Mm-hmm.
But back then I said, in 2000, I said none.
Funny you should mention that, because I'm on the internet right now.
I'm sure you are. I just mentioned that experience at Warped Tour because it was very profound in shaping me, as well as the other album that I mentioned by Jimmy Eat World. So those were pretty much the albums I played continuously throughout my senior year. My pop punk band broke up, and I decided, I'm going to concentrate on swimming. And then I got this opportunity from a friend, her dad. They live right down the block from me. He heard my music, and he wanted to basically pay to record me and be like my manager, producer, whatever. And I was like, really? Wow. So I demoed 7 songs on my 4-track, and I mixed them down, gave them to him on cassette.
Dude.
And he was like, okay, I could work with this for sure. I'll pick these 3 songs because it's really expensive to record. I mean, this is back in 2000, So he takes me to this analog studio in Chicago. So here's my senior year. I get off school, I go home, Lou picks me up, and we drive down 94 all the way to Chicago, and we record music. I'm not going to get into like a lot of detail, but those were, again, another period in my life. Somebody took the time and money. Mm-hmm. Like, he paid for me. He must have paid probably like $8,000 when it's all said and done on this kid. You know what I mean? Like, he believed in me, and I had some really great experiences with him. I mean, he taught me how to use a metronome, and I became basically a studio musician in high school, to a degree. But we would have arguments about little details in the song that didn't matter so much. So I also got a taste of what it's like to not have freedom completely because somebody else is funding you. So that gave me the more so look from a major label aspect. After that experience, I decided to not have people pay for me and do it myself. But before I get into that, ending with my senior year, as I had mentioned, I was a competitive swimmer. And every year that I swam, like every time you get to the conference and the sectionals, all 3 years that I was in McHenry, I got my time down on the butterfly like 3 or 4 seconds each time. I can't remember the time it was, and we were swimming yards. We weren't swimming meters. But my senior year, I was like, I want this so bad. And anybody, the only person I know out there right now listening that could potentially be listening to this that was a swimmer is Gons. So if Gons is hearing this, he understands. There's a procedure you do with swimming. A lot of people the week before conference start tapering. I don't know if you ever heard of tapering, but that's when you start doing a lot less swimming. Like, your practices are intense the whole season. Like, you're doing, I don't know, 10,000 yards of practice or something like that at practice. It's a lot. It's like 2 hours just jam-packed of nonstop fast swimming.
So by tapering, you start to pull back. And
so, yeah, you start to relax a bit. Again, like, Gons could probably explain this better than I could. I never really fully understood how it worked, but apparently when you taper, you stop working so hard and your muscles have time to kind of chill out, and you're actually at your peak.
Right. Well, when they, in a small period like that, it's kind of similar to to wrestling. When we would come up to our major tournaments, our practices would be less and less intense. And actually, instead of having practice every night, we'd go one night without one, or 2 nights without one right before, and we would do one right the night before, but it would be a really easy practice because you're working your muscles and driving them, and then what happens is you back off and you give them a chance to rest and to really recover and strengthen themselves, and then the next time you use them, you're like, bam.
Makes sense. Thank you for the explanation, Dan. You can relate. So, also in the tapering process is a little thing that some people don't like to talk about, but you have to shave your legs. Most swimmers, the hardcore ones, shave everything.
Wrestlers don't do that.
Including their own head. So, I mean, I never shaved my head, but I shaved like my legs and all that. And it does actually cut off time. And Gons, if you're listening, I'm sure that you can vouch for that. It actually does work. It makes you go a lot faster. You're a lot more aerodynamic without any hair. So anyway, I opted not to taper at conference or right before conference. And this dude, I forget his name, but he was a swimmer from another school, and he was doing the butterfly. He was never as good as me. He beats me at conference. This is my senior year. This is like my last chance. Dan, going back to Dan's, experiences in his last episode,
there.
Oh, dude.
Oh, man.
So I always smoked this dude, and he just snakes it, man, right past me. And I didn't taper. He tapered. Everybody else tapered. So now all I have left is sectionals. I wasn't worried about it because sectionals is really what gets you to state. Mm-hmm. But I was worried that he beat me. I was like, this was not a factor I was aware of. So
I didn't know this was possible.
Right. And so that week after conference, I'm like, what am I going to do? So I start to taper for sectionals that week. Mm-hmm. But during that week, to add insult to injury, I'm reading the newspaper and I'm reading the sports section of the local area. And it's this whole article about him going to sectionals and like, what's his favorite music? Well, he's listening to Fish and blah, blah, blah. Like, it was just all about this dude. And I'm like, I know I can beat this dude. Why are they? And it was probably jealousy, but I mean,
haven't they called me yet about this?
Why not me? I wanted to be that guy, but I wanted to be much faster than that guy. Mm-hmm. Get to sectionals. I'm on the bus in Stevenson parking lot, and I am praying in my bus seat alone. Took my headphones off. I think I'd probably been listening to Jimmy Eat World, and I just prayed to God. It sounds so cliche and ridiculous, but I prayed to the Lord, and I just said, Lord, I know that I don't probably necessarily deserve this, but I've been working really hard the last 3 years, and I just want to break the record. I don't care if I go to state. I mean, if I go to state, cool, but I just want to break the record for butterfly. I'm very close in the 50 freestyle. I don't care about that. I can let that go. I don't care about freestyle either. Just let me break my school record. That's all I care about. I just want to be on the record board for that stroke and have my own record, not just these relay records that I'm a part of. And I get in, and so the way that the events are is 50 freestyle is before 100 fly. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, like, they are back to back. So my two like prime strokes that I'm good at, or events that I'm good at, are back to back. So like you got to recover from sprinting the 50 and then go to 100. Luckily, a lot of butterflyers are also freestylers. So the way that they do it like a 15-minute break there. So I do the 50 freestyle first, and I qualify for state.
Nice.
Yeah. I qualified for state, and it's not even the one that I was asking God for. And to make things even cooler, my grandmother was there, who is somebody that it was like really near and dear to me, like I had mentioned previously in my life, on my mother's side, my grandmother, who is now deceased. So she got to watch it. That was awesome. So that amped me up. I was still nervous about butterfly. I prayed again, and I really wanted the butterfly. I do the butterfly when my time comes up, and I qualify for butterfly and break the record for butterfly for my school.
Nice.
I can't express to you how I felt that day. I've had a few days in my life
Like MJ, I can't believe today was a good day.
that were like, whoa, no way. And
Now, were one of those the day that you proposed?
one of those days was the day I got married. One of those days was the day that my first child was born.
Yes.
There's been I could count them on, like, two hands probably. But anyway, so at this point now I've qualified for state, which is a week away. I get to state, I do the 50 freestyle, and I break my school record for the 50 freestyle. So now I've got 2 records in my school. Now, mind you, I am certainly not in the fastest heat, but I'm like 25th in state, whatever, freestyle. So then I do the butterfly, and I didn't do any better than I did in the previous one. I was like just below is good, and I was like, again, like around the 25 in state mark. And that's when I was like, you know what? I got both these records. I'm happy. I'm happy, Lord. I did all I can do. And the real clincher was the people that were in the final heat, the fastest heat of these strokes, literally broke the state record. So it was very humbling yet fulfilling at the same time. I was like, I'm not going to bite off more than I can chew. I'm not as good as you, and I don't plan on being. So I think I'm okay with just calling it a day on swimming after this. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that was the moment I decided, you know what? I'm going to do music.
Well, you
I mean, I already knew I
felt like
wanted
at that
to do.
You've accomplished your goal in this
Right.
area.
It was
Let's
like,
move on.
I was like, I'm good. And I really think that God, I don't know why he allowed me to do that, but I have a feeling it has to do with confidence, because I'm somebody who doesn't necessarily have the most confidence in myself in a lot of things. I don't necessarily try to just figure things out or take things apart. I don't have that kind of mindset. But the things that I do really try hard at, I managed to do pretty well at. Not necessarily like the best or anything, not like the state champion or anything, but I do decent. And I feel like that at least shaped me for, you know what, I think there's hope for the future, et cetera, et cetera. And that, I think, gave me a lot of boosted confidence to do music after high school. Also, around that time, I'm going to just throw this one out there. As I was on that slippery slope that I was talking about, away from God, I also gave my virginity away to my girlfriend at the time, and she with me. So another slippery slope of sin. But you try to justify it. You're like, well, we're going to get married. You say that in high school, well, we're going to get married anyway. Sure. So right before I graduate, I'm already aware that I'm going to be doing music, and I start forming this band with a few friends two friends from Johnsburg and one friend from McHenry, and we're going for this total like indie rock, emo, whatever you want to call it, style, influenced by what I was talking about earlier. And